Hello everybody and welcome back to the Ōkami walkthrough. It is time for Hana Valley. I have absolutely no idea why my mouth is just sort of not wanting to merge the two words together properly. Oh dear. But anyway, this is basically our first mini dungeon, I guess you could say. Like, we're not going to get to our first dungeon for quite a while yet, but this sort of acts like a dungeon in the sense of we have a location to get to, we will learn a brush technique and then be able to do stuff. There's no boss or anything, but basically it sort of acts like a dungeon. And we get to slaughter a load of imps because they are not allowed to have any fun, basically. Now, I believe that the music you heard just before we got into this fight oh gosh, I'm not actually sure what it was. I thought it was something to do with, like, the imp's feast disturbed, but I seem to have, Ah, there we go, yes. So, the main theme for Hana Valley is Cursed Hanasaki Valley. And I believe what we heard just then was Demon's Banquet, which we then kind of intervened in and just were really mean. Fun fact is that the imp's campfire always relights itself if it is extinguished, which is a bit mean on their part, but what the hell can you do? Now, these guys, it's possible to stun them, but we can't do anything with them just yet. Basically, there is a brush technique which I have been attempting to use for, pretty much all of the games so far since we got the Celestial Brush. And we're in Kamiki, and I just haven't got it yet. But we are basically about to get a glorious brush technique, which is very nice. Also, we get introduced to another new enemy. We've had the green imps, we've had the red imps, and now it's time for the yellow imps. I'm really not a fan of these guys. I don't know, I think it's because they dig underground and then you have to wait for them to come up and then attack them. It just gets a little bit... And also, they are incredibly powerful. Like, there's a sort of cannon move that they'll pull off, and if they get that thing hitting you, oh, you are in trouble. That said, there's something very interesting that I feel I need to point out. You can obviously see that there's actually quite a lot of kanji going on in the background of the fights. That is proper kanji, and it does read something, but I can't actually remember what it's called. I'll have to do a little bit of hunting to see what the actual words are. But what's really, really awesome is that actually on the imp's masks, that also has Japanese symbols. So the yellow imp has the katakana for, well, it has the katakana ha. I'm not quite sure what that is. I think katakana is the lettering. You see, this is the really annoying thing of growing up in a culture that really doesn't tend to give that much of a sod about other cultures. I mean, the UK is actually very culturally diverse, but you generally only tend to learn the Christian stuff and nothing else really gets a look in. Also, yeah, like you're gonna trade Susano. Fat chance of that. And okay, yes, I was correct. So the katakana is a Japanese syllabary. So it's kind of the component of, well, the componential writing system that goes along with hiragana and kanji and so on and so forth. So it's like letters, basically. Now, I'm just double checking what the green imps have as their katakana, because it's different to the yellow imps. Also, Susano? That's just a bear. And this wonderful little track is called Nemuri's Theme. Oh dear. And, yes, the green imps have I or I as their katakana symbol. And I'm pretty sure the red imps have another katakana, but we will see that in a little moment. First off, Susano's exploding implosion. I'm incredibly sorry, Mr. Bear, Mrs. Bear, not quite sure, but I feel evil. Sorry. Oh dear, Susano. But, having just had another check, the katakana symbol on the red imp's masks is Ro, which is quite cool. I believe we also musically just heard Iga Susano first half, Iga Susano second half, and Susano's fight. I believe we heard all of them. Also, we get introduced to the absolutely horrendous ball-pushing physics in Ōkami. Yes, you have to push the ball all the way down. And no, this is not pleasant. Technically, I think what is supposed to happen is that you are meant to sort of get latched onto the ball and then be able to kind of carefully maneuver it, but it simply just doesn't work that way. And so, oh, good grief. And also this will form part of what is, I have to say, for me at least, the worst, and I seriously do mean worst, side quest in the entirety of Ōkami. And that's saying something. But also something that's really neat is, so you see this cave drawing here that we were looking at. It mentions about kind of obviously turning the sun up, which then means that we can do a little bit of divine intervention and restoration. but if you examine them in-game, Issun exclaims something along the lines of, "Even a master artist like myself must admit the artistic brilliance of these primitive works." And the artists got very happy hearing that during testing, because it made him feel really, really good. And we have found another constellation. What is going to be behind this constellation, you may ask? Well, it's going to be something quite awesome, and it's going to provide us with a wonderful brush technique, which is just gloriously helpful. So here we have Sakigami, who is one of the 3 Hanagami flora gods. Now, the Hanagami gods are, well, Hana means flower, so I mean Hana Valley literally means flower bloom valley. Well, Hanasaki Dani means flower bloom valley. And so that should probably give you a clue as to why this guy is called Sakigami, because Saku Saki means to bloom. It's also where you get Sakura, because it's cherry blossom. And basically this teaches us the ability to bloom, which means that we can actually have a little bit of divine intervention and restore these wonderful, wonderful trees, and get some of the most wonderful cutscenes in the entirety of the game. I mean, just look at that, that was just stunning. It makes me so happy. Now, Sakigami is playing a show. That's the instrument he's playing. Basically, it's a Japanese free-reed musical instrument that was apparently introduced from China during the Nara period, so AD 710 to 794, and modelled on the Chinese sheng, though the show tends to be smaller in size. Basically a bunch of 17 slender bamboo pipes, each of which is fitted in its base with a metal free reed. 2 of the pipes are silent, but there is apparently some research that suggests that they were used in some music during the Heian period. Apparently it's also used, or said, to imitate the call of a phoenix. And it's for that reason that the 2 silent pipes are kept, because it's an aesthetic element, making the 2 symmetrical wings. So that's quite a cool little nifty feature. I also feel like I should probably bring up something that I don't think is necessarily a basis for what they were going for, but Hanasaki, which is the Japanese name for Hana Valley, is actually the name of, well, it's 2 train stations in Japan. But the one that was the most noticeable to me is the Tobu Isesaki line, which has been open since like 1899. The reason for that being because there is Hanasaki Station and there is also Agata Station. Now, Agata won't really mean anything to you at the minute because we haven't reached that location yet, but there is another location in the game which is called Agata. So, I don't know whether it's intentional, but it just further proves the point that this entire world is based on Japan. I can't seem to find anything else to do with Hanasaki, but it happens. Also, something that's really awesome with the Hanagami, the flora-based triumvirate of gods, is that, well, something that you should be noticing is that the celestial brush gods are based on the East Asian zodiac. So we had the dragon, we had the rat, we've now got the monkey. But also, seeing as Sakigami is part of the triumvirate, there are 3 monkeys, and they quite literally refer to see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So Mizaru, Kikazaru, and Iwazaru. So that's all really cool. And also, we now get to use the wonderful bloom technique, which I've been really desperate to use. Just because it's so wonderful, and it gives you a buttload of praise. Now, there are these like travel tips throughout the game that you can get. Generally, I don't tend to look at them, but they can be helpful if you just want a little bit of help every now and again. Now, this thing of bringing forth trees is not something that you're going to need to use a lot. In fact, it's only absolutely necessary to complete one side quest. But it's there and it's quite a cool thing. Also, as you saw, now that we have bloom, we can heal these cursed trees. And you do that by reflecting their projectiles back at them with Power Slash to stun them, and then you bloom them. Now, I have to say, I don't know whether it is just something to do with the Wii version, but pulling off bloom can sometimes be a little bit challenging. I'm not sure whether it's because, well, I think part of it is because the standard bloom is a very similar shape to sunrise. So, I mean, if you're facing up into the air with the tree, then potentially you're going to pull off sunrise when you want to pull off bloom, which can be a little bit annoying, but oh well. Also, right there, we just dug up a clover. If you didn't realise it yet, Ōkami was made by Clover Studios, and they basically, much like Platinum Games would go on to do, make a butt ton of references to themselves, which is wonderful. And it makes me very happy. Particularly because for the Wii port here, Capcom tried so desperately to remove Clover Studios from all of the branding for Ōkami. They really tried hard. But because one of the core components of the game, one of the main collectibles, was the clovers, they couldn't entirely erase them from it. Obviously, well, actually no! Even in the HD port, they still kind of completely removed Clover's involvement. All of the kind of staff are certainly still credited, but they are certainly not classified as Clover Studios, because the logo is completely removed from the credits. And I like how I keep talking about the credits even though we have literally just started the game, and this thing is not short. I mean, there are certainly longer RPGs out there, but Ōkami is definitely not short. I mean, there comes a point you get to, well, it's about the 3rd wave mark, where you think it's kind of wrapping up to its conclusion, and then it keeps going. But yeah, it's quite long. So we're in this one for the long haul, folks. But also, I should point out that music right now is Hanasaki Valley. Most of the songs are titled quite simply like that. It's like when we were in Shinshu Fields, it was Cursed Shinshu Plains 1, Cursed Shinshu Plains 2, and once we have restored it, it will be Shinshu Plains 1 and Shinshu Plains 2. So, it's a nice, simple little thing, but all of the music's great. And I suppose that now is a decent time to, well, first off I should point out, make sure to bloom all of the trees in Hana Valley. If you do, you will be able to get, I think it's a sun fragment, which is a collectible which will eventually increase your health. It's very much like heart pieces in Zelda. But with the Ōkami soundtrack, there are 218 songs across the 5-disc soundtrack that are played in-game, as well as numerous demo and prototype songs that are never played unless you access them in the jukebox area of the Presents from Issun, but apparently it seems that that was only in the US and European releases. There was another version of the soundtrack released, so the first one was 2005, then it was re-released in 2007, which was just Ōkami piano arranged, which had 10 songs arranged on the piano. Then the soundtrack was re-released again, the selected song, so it's Ōkami Classic Soundtrack in 2009, along with the Wii version, which contained 42 songs identical to the ones in the Ōkami original soundtrack, but in a different order, and one song from Ōkami Piano Arrange. And then another arrangement was released, called Ōkami Tone of the Quintuple, which was released alongside Ōkami HD. Which featured original instrumental versions of songs from the Ōkami original soundtrack. The name quintuple refers to 5 different instruments used in every song, which is the shamisen, the cello, the violin, the piano, and the shakuhachi. So the shamisen is that 3-stringed guitar-like instrument, which is very, very, very common in Japanese pictures and theatre and stuff, and the shakuhachi is a flute, which is actually being played by that one guy who is in Kimiki Village, who I have horrifically forgotten the name of. I'll remember it eventually. This. So, because basically the soundtrack of Ōkami is based on classical Japanese music. So, that's also why you have the, hoi! Kind of noises. I'm not quite sure what that's called. Something I will probably look into as we progress further throughout the walkthrough. But I believe that that pretty much sums everything up in Hana Valley. We've got all the clovers, we've got all of the chests, and yeah, we've got bloom, which means that we can actually start doing stuff and healing everything in the wonderful Shinshu Field, which is going to be absolutely wonderful. So, oh wait a minute, no, I've missed a dig spot. Thankfully, I just remembered that before I left, otherwise that would have been rather embarrassing. Particularly because I believe this is a very important dig spot. Because I think it has a stray bead in it. And we are going to get every single stray bead. And I am indeed correct, so... whew, dodged a bullet there. But... there we go. That is everything in Hana Valley completed. Let's head back to Shinshu Field and hopefully we shall be healing it. Yay!